JJ Humphrey. We're back on Elephant in the Room. And today, Bobby Cleveland had a birthday party for some of his kids down in Dallas, so he couldn't be with us. So I asked my good friend, Justin Jackson, to join me. We got a lot going on. Justin has been involved in the Richard Glossip death penalty case. I'm not going to say from the beginning, but you've been involved. How many years, Justin, are you been involved in this? Quite a few, I know.
We've been we're close to 7 years now.
7 years. Well, I know that probably 4 of that I've been involved with you. And so
right.
Just so our listeners know, Justin called me. He got involved in this case. He called me and he asked me if I would talk to the attorney in this case. And I was like, oh, Justin, I don't want to. Man, that guy's had 1,000 appeals. I don't need to talk to him. I've worked this kind of stuff. There's nothing there. He stayed on me. Justin Jackson stayed on me. And he stayed on me till I called this lawyer, which is named Don Knight from Colorado. And I laughed, told Don, said, hey, if you got a smoking gun, you better pull it out. I'm not going to hang around here a long time. The only reason I'm calling you is for Justin. And Don goes on and talks. And long story short, it wasn't what Don told me. It was what Don told me who represented him. And I was like, that guy didn't get no representation. And then if Bob Macy was trying to prosecute him, they pulled everything, what I'm saying, hook or crook or whatever. They'd do whatever it took to get a conviction. They didn't mind that it was illegal. They'd do it. Yeah. And that's not me talking. That's been very, very proven in numerous cases, not one case, in numerous cases. That's a fact. Yeah. And so we started working and we ended up getting an investigation done on this case. For me, at that point, it wasn't what we had, it was what we didn't have. How did they convict this guy on what they didn't have? And then, we found all this evidence that the DA had destroyed evidence, key evidence, not minor evidence, key evidence. The DA told their investigator, put it in a box, put the wrong case number on it, and destroy it. They perjured themselves. They witness tampered. They held back evidence. The appellate court here in Oklahoma unanimously said, go ahead and execute him. We send that to the pro board. They 50-50 split. And we had to go to the U.S. Supreme Court. And the U.S. Supreme Court overturned that case and sent it back to have a hearing. And Justin, I really didn't think, that's kind of where we are right now. I did not think that Drummond, because Drummond, guys, the AG, he defended that case up there at the U.S. Supreme Court. So, Justin, how do you come, and that's what I wanted to get your perspective today on, how do you go from defending somebody to now turn right around and go after them? You're going to go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. You're going to stand in front of the U.S. Supreme Court and say, this guy did not receive justice. He did not receive a fair trial. Evidence destroyed. How do you have a fair hearing with all the evidence that would have cleared him that they destroyed?
That's right. And it's hard for me to understand Drummond's mindset on this because as you and I both, we both confronted him in May on his decision to move forward with the new trial, especially after we had an agreement that is well documented with our team that he was that Glossip was going to admit to guilt on accessory after the fact, so he could not come back and sue the state. and was going to be released sometime in April. We all set our lives according to that agreement, and now he's saying that, well, he really, it wasn't an official agreement, and so he's trying to appease the DA's counsel. These were his words, not mine, but he's got the scars to prove it, and I've always said, I'm extremely grateful for what Gettner Drummond did at the time that he did it, or Richard would be dead by now. We had his 9th execution date, and you were there with me the last day that we could have a contact visit. Yourself, McDugle, Sister Helen, Rich's wife Leah, and we were thinking, this is it. He's about to go up on death watch, but because of what Gettner had put in place, we got to stay actually that day. I'll never forget getting the phone call. You and Kevin McDugle were doing an interview with Lester Holt.
Yep,
and
I remember that.
The note slid across his desk and said, guys, I have breaking news. The U.S. Supreme Court has granted a stay in Richard Glossip, because he was to be executed just 2 weeks late. 2 weeks from that date, I believe.
Absolutely. We're being interviewed by Lester, and somebody slips that note in there, and Lester says, guys, I got something to tell you. Boom. And he says, hey, this has been stayed, and they're going to go, to the Supreme Court. And it's just like, wow, like, boom. Hey, right. This is the best news you could got,
That's right.
But here's what gets me. And you know what? I like Drummond. I don't man, I would tell you, I've got COVID that he ain't done good on. I've got ATF deal that I'm working on. He ain't done good on. DHS, he's been terrible on. Corrections, he's been terrible on. I got 2 or 3 other things that he just ain't done nothing on. But he did do this, and I'll give him credit. I give credit. I'll call the balls that are balls and strikes where they're strikes, But right. He is likable. I like him. He's got a good sense of humor. I think he's got a really good sense of humor. I got tickled the other day on that. Some of them that I'm working with on COVID went in there and taped him, and he said, he told them, I don't need your vote, and I'm a grown-ass man, and I can do whatever I want. And I got laughing going, well, you're a grown-ass man, and you can do what you want, but that ain't going to look good. If you're running for governor, that's not the video you really want. I wouldn't want that out there myself.
No,
I wouldn't want that.
And that's that kind of brings me to, his move here, because we both know that the documentation of the emails exist, and they're going to be subpoenaed now. Drummond, his solicitor general, it's probably Steve Harp with the direction of corrections, Department of Corrections. There's going to be a lot of folks now that are going to be held accountable to what was said, and I can't understand why he wouldn't have wanted to go with his original plan. This was their plan,
right?
That Don Knight and his team and us collectively, that was the agreement. And so, but now it's all going to be for the world to see. Mine and everybody else's tax dollars are going towards this trial, which will be millions, and then potentially millions to be paid out once Rich is found innocent of these capital murder charges that they're bringing forth.
Well, Justin, just so everybody listening kind of we go back a little bit. So we had a meeting, and Sue Arnell helped us get that meeting set up, and Sue Arnell arranged a meeting between myself, I think McDugle was in there, Don Knight's team, the team from Houston that helped us investigate this. All of us were in this meeting, and I think Vicky, the DA, Vicky Bahana, was in there, Oklahoma County DA. All of us in this meeting, we presented evidence to show that we had that prove that they had destroyed evidence, prove that they had witnessed tampering, prove that they committed perjury, whole 9 yards. And so he agreed that he would hire his own private investigator, a guy named Rex Duncan, who I love very much. And he said that he wanted to get his own people to confirm what we were telling him, that he thought that our investigators were working for us, was going to tell us what we wanted to hear. And I said, hey, if you get Rex, whatever Rex says, because Rex is going to say what we're saying, because he's going to tell the truth.
Right.
Rex not only confirms everything we said, but Rex found records that we've been calling for quite some time. McDugle and I had a interim hearing. It was in our committee, the committee I chaired, and we let McDugle come in and present that. And so we presented this interim hearing in that committee, and we called Prater and we called Mike Hunter and said, hey, we know you got evidence. You're required to turn it over. We want to see it. And they wouldn't turn it over. Now, that rocks on. Well, Rex comes up and finds this evidence, finds several other things that just make our case stronger. So that's
right.
what put, that put Drummond in a bad spot. And that put Drummond in a spot where he knows this thing's probably going to get overturned by the Supreme Court, where he knows this is really problematic because his own investigator is telling him, hey, this thing is bad, So he calls. So it wasn't that Don Knight's calling up and going, hey, you got a problem here. You got a bad, a bad case over here. You got a bad bum steer over here. And why don't you do this? No. Drummond, A.G. Drummond calls Don and says, hey, this is what we'd like to do. 2nd-degree murder, if I remember right, you're not going to sue and we'll get time served. And people are wondering, well, what could Stephen Hart testify to? It's my understanding they had to call Hart to make sure that they were going to get the good time to discharge him, that he was going to get the county's good time to discharge him to get the time served on the murder too. So again, this agreement is not just two guys talking and, well, if we get here and we get there, we could probably do this. No, it is in writing. So it is in writing, and it involved multiple people that had to confirm these things and had to agree to these things. And so again, I don't think that it's going to be hard to prove that they had an agreement. And I don't, I said the other day, so guys, they had a bond hearing, and a lot of people were feeling like because of this agreement and the other things that they would release him on bond. I never believed they would release him on bond. I said, if they do set a bond, it'd be so high he can't make it. I don't think they would set a bond, and that's exactly what she did. But I will tell you this, I will be surprised if they do not honor. And again, I think why do you think he went back on his word, Justin?
The only reason is to appease the DA's counsel, because I think he's afraid that they're going to come out with a campaign against him being soft on crime, and they're going to use this Glossip case as the pinnacle of that. But it's just like I told him there at Stevens County in Duncan when you were with me. I said, to get an endorsement from the DAC means nothing to the majority of Oklahomans. What he did do when he stood up for what was right at the right time, that's what he could campaign on. And that's where he would have people like you and I in his corner. But now he's completely going against what he fought so hard to do. And to me, he's trying to remove the scars that he has from the DA's counsel. And I think it's a bad political move. And it's unfortunate that he's playing politics with a man's life that you and I both know he is deserving to breathe free air now. and
Well, they
and
don't.
should
They don't
have
have.
he should have years ago and months ago. We shouldn't this we should be moving on now, but instead we're probably we're looking at another year of having this trial.
I don't know about that, Justin, because I'm gonna tell you something. I think we have this hearing in about 2 weeks. I'm gonna be shocked that they don't. Now they may have to have multiple hearings and say, "Hey, we're gonna put this on," but I'm going to be shocked that the judge, when you have it in writing and you have multiple people can confirm that that was done, and I don't even think that the AG is going to deny that he said these things. He's going to deny, well, I didn't have a binding agreement. You know, that's what he's going to say. I didn't have a binding agreement. And I laugh. You know, we go over there the other day to Duncan. We walked in there. I laughed. He called me. He said, "Oh, hey, it's my old pen pal." And I laughed. I said, "Yep, it's your pen pal." I said, "I got some more stuff I'll be writing you." But here's where I'm at, and I'm political. I mean, I'm in politics just like he's in politics. I'm in law enforcement. I'm still a law enforcement officer, just like he is. Okay, but here's the difference between me and Gittner Drummond. Gittner's going to use a case like you just said. I believe that this case to him is not about right and wrong. It's 1,000%, like Kevin McDugle said, 1,000% political. I've always said that Drummond looks through a lens, his law enforcement lens. How he views law enforcement doesn't get me closer to the governor's office. You know what I'm saying? That's how he interprets the law. And so here's what happened when he did all that, when he stood up for Glossip, because he really didn't have much choice. He did have a choice. He could have not done it. He'd look bad. But he won a lot of support by standing up for him. He won a lot of support. Oh. And here's the deal, but he made them DAs mad. And them DAs, they can really squawk loud. Ain't nobody really likes them. I don't care if they squawk. Let them squawk, because I you know, they've got a pretty poor reputation across the state, in my opinion. So Here's the deal. So he goes and does what's right, and then he turns around and comes back trying to appease them, and he trying to spraddle that fence. You know what I'm saying? You know what happens when you get caught out too spraddled on that fence, you know. You get hung up in a bad spot right there. And that's what I'm going to predict is going to happen to him on this case, because he's trying to appease this group and say, well, he didn't get killed. I stopped that. Oh, but I went over here and I let the DAs. And here's another question, Justin. How can he say that he was involved in defending him, so he needs to recuse? So he does. That's why he's saying, my understanding, why he's saying he's bringing in the district attorney counsel.
Right. Yeah.
Now
Stevenson, I think is his last name. The
Stevens or something like that, I think.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Guess what? I've been to 2 hearings, and guess who's been standing right up there?
Attorney General's office.
They're asking. The Attorney General looks like he's ramrodding the show.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That other guy just over there is kind of a stand-in, assistant, whatever. The Attorney General's the one running the show. So if you're recusing and if you're out of it, then how is it that you're running the show? So that don't make no sense. I mean, that makes absolutely no sense. And then he comes out and he says, well, I think we have a very strong case against Richard. Well, now you've argued against all that. Now you're going to argue you got a strong case.
Right.
And here's the deal. I guess you do. If y'all destroy all the evidence, if you burned all the evidence that would clear him, I guess you got a pretty strong case because you got rid of all the evidence.
Right.
And go ahead.
I was just going to say what that says to me is we have very little confidence that should we go to trial, that it's going to be a fair trial. Because, what do they have? If they had something so strong, they would have brought that forth during the Pardon and Parole Board hearing that he allowed us to use, the defense to use their time to plead for clemency, you know? And you had Drummond asking for it. You had Rex Duncan. You had a very strong presence from the Attorney General's office saying that this case needs to be overturned. We have made a mistake. So again, I can't understand from a political stance. You and I both have been in politics. How his mindset of weighing the positive and the negatives. It's way too far in the negative category to do what he's doing, because again, the truth is going to come out, and I just don't understand why he would play that card at this point in time.
You know what I would have done if I'd been him? I would have cut a deal, kept the deal that I made, cut that deal, because that's a pretty good deal for them. That's a good deal. They still get a conviction. He doesn't sue the state, and he's done 20 plus 27 years, 28 years. Guess what? Cut the cards and let's go home. The deal's done. You know what I'm saying? It's a good deal for everybody. Richard gets to get out. The state don't get sued. The state gets their pound of flesh. And again, here's the deal. Do you really want a pound of flesh from a guy that you don't? I don't know. I've looked at the case. You've looked at the case. If there's something there, now they quoted me in the Oklahoma Watches. I thought that he's innocent. I don't ever say that. I didn't say that to them. What I said was, I can't find any proof. I've looked as hard as anybody, and I can't find any proof, which makes you innocent. I guess I could say he's innocent, but I don't say it like that. What I say is, show me the proof that shows he's guilty, and if you can't, then he's innocent. He's innocent till proven guilty. Right. And guess what? They have not got any evidence that I know of that would be beyond a reasonable doubt that would convict him of much. In fact, I will tell you this. I'm sitting on the jury. I don't know of anything that I would say, it looks like they have the killer. I think there was a female killer involved with them. I think Justin Sneed, the guy. So guys, we know who killed him. He's already admitted to killing him. They just offered him a real good deal if he'd say Rich put him up to it. Okay? Yep. The guy never mentions Rich's name. They tell him Rich's name probably 15 times. If you'll tell us Rich told you, if you'll tell us Glossip told you, if you'll give us Glossip, we'll help you out. If you'll give us Glossip, we'll help you out. If you give it some finally, he goes, yeah, that's who did it. Yeah, that's who put me up to it. And guys, that's on tape. That's not me making it up. It is almost that blatant on tape. And so again, that in by itself smacks. That's what they've got. They've got this guy saying that. The guy has perjured himself at the instructions of the DA. The DA told him, hey, your testimony doesn't line up with the medical examiner evidence shows. You know what they call that in the criminal justice business? That means it's a lie. What you're saying doesn't add up with the medical examiner, so you are lying. It would help our case if you would tell a different story. So guess what? He changes. And here's what's funny. They write right along in the column, here's what we want you to say. Guess what he walks in there and says? Exactly what they want him to say. Yeah. Now, guys, that's witness tampering. It's a felony all day long. It's perjury all day long. Perjury on him, perjury on them. It's called supporting perjury on them. Witness tampering, destroying evidence. All of these are crimes, okay? Now, if I was Getner Drummond, I would come in and prosecute them. You want to talk about, if you wanted to get kudos, because I think people are aware they've been watching Trump and they've watched how that the Democrats have, weaponized the criminal justice system. We got all these problems that people are seeing with DHS and the judges and the DAs, and we got DA fraud going on, and we've got all of these issues with district attorneys. And I think that if he would went in and held these district attorneys accountable for breaking the law and putting this guy in jail without any evidence and destroying the evidence that could have released him, then I think he'd look like a hero.
Oh, he would have. He missed a golden opportunity to start changing our judicial system by making some examples out of these folks. You know, after the U.S. Supreme Court decision, Connie Smotherman, who was the prosecutor that encouraged or insisted that Justin Sneed change his testimony about the knife stabbing. She teaches ethics at OU Law. Huge petition was out from her students asking for her resignation. There's nothing going other than she's going to be subpoenaed and brought in, and you know she doesn't want to be in Judge Cole's courtroom to be put in the hot seat, but she will. But Gettner missed, in my opinion, politically, he missed a golden opportunity, and that was do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. And that resonates with folks in Oklahoma. I can tell you a good friend of mine up in the Enid area saw him this last weekend, and when the story came out about the emails and how he is recanting his agreement, they said, "Hey, we were supporters, but we're not now. He's a liar." And so, you know, again, it's a huge miscalculation on Gettner's part, because he could have really, like you said, he could have gotten a lot of accolades for just doing the right thing and staying with the agreement.
Well, I think people are ready to see, you know, I know people are ready to see people held accountable that hold positions and are doing wrong. And again, there's one thing about being, you know, if you're just negligent or just, you know, I'm not trying to use ignorant, don't want to call anybody ignorant, but you're unaware of the facts, you know what I'm saying, most of the time, because you don't try to find them out.
Right.
But here's the deal. If you're that, okay, I'm not looking for a criminal, because criminal shows intent. That you intentionally, willfully, neglectfully, maliciously, and all this did this, you know. But here's the deal. We've got people in our criminal justice system, like Smotherman, who intentionally destroyed evidence, who intentionally rewrote and said, "Hey, I want you to change your testimony." And of all the people in the world that know both of those things are illegal to do, she is one. She's up there teaching at OU, you know, law school. You think she don't know that? Teaching ethics. You think she doesn't know that?
He knows
that. And the hypocrisy that she would teach ethics. And then here's what's funny. That OU law school, now can I get a witness? We don't generally think that as a bastion of conservative thinking. You know what I'm saying? Normally that is going to be some pretty, you know, most of the time we don't want to just assume, but quite often there'll be quite a bit of liberal thinkers in that group. You know what I'm saying? And yet the liberals are saying this is unacceptable. She needs to be held accountable. OU, get her out of here, passing petition to get rid of her. Now, why would these law students do that and our own AG not look even at you know, prosecuting these people? And again, here's what's funny, Justin. If we were talking about this case in and by itself, it would be one thing. If this was an isolated incident, it would be one thing. Mm-hmm. But we know that they had a medical examiner that made a habit of changing all of these things. They were caught. Bob Macy, what was her name? I can't remember. Gilchrist,
I think Choi, wasn't her last name Choi or something like that?
Well, Choi is one of the medical examiners, but they had another one called Gilchrist.
Yes.
And Gilchrist, purposely changed stuff. But yeah, Choi is also one, when you're reading these, that's also quite often got it wrong and has really made statements that you couldn't even back up. And
Right.
have actually even come and recant, I've got a case right now I'm working on where that medical examiner made a statement that 9 of the juries said the reason they convicted that guy was because of her testimony. And she's
Right.
now come back and said she may have misspoken and was wrong. And 3 top medical people, like some of the top in the United States, has come back and said she's absolutely wrong. So you got 3 who look. In fact, what was funny, the first one found this, he got interested in the case, looked at the case and said, this is not true. This changes the whole case. And he sent it to one of the top medical examiners in the United States and sent it to him and said, I'm not going to tell you anything about this case. I don't want to, persuade you one way or, bias you in any way. I want you to look at it and I want you to tell me your opinion. And guess what? This guy reaches the same conclusion. They send it to a third person, did the same thing. All 3 top people come to the same conclusion. And here's this one person saying, no, he had to kill him because here's why. And again, it's a self-defense case, and it had to do whether the guy, when he was stabbed, so the guy stabbed him in his own home, an intruder in his home, he stabs him. Choi says, well, if he would have stabbed him, he would have died at the point of where he was stabbed. He would have dropped to the floor dead right then. The guy runs out in the street and then goes out in the street and dies down the block away. So the guy goes outside, calls the police, goes outside, sees the guy down the street, laying in the street, goes down there to check, and he's dead. And they said, no, he had to chase him out of the house, chase him down the street and kill him on the street. So they said he was no longer in danger. He chased him down to kill him. And now here he sits 29 years later. But now we know that he could have stabbed him in the house and he could have run even further than what he did.
Right.
Based on 3 experts. So again, these are the kind of testimonies that can change, that these whole courts weigh up on. And like right now with Richard, they destroyed anything. So guess what? Especially with today's technology, with blood, DNA, and all that, fingerprinting, all the ways they've got to retrieve fingerprints off of things, shower curtains, duct tape, all the things that were present that this victim was laid on or taped up with. Guess what? You don't get rid of that stuff. In a murder case, especially. In a death penalty case, you don't get rid of that stuff. And they destroyed it. And I promise you they didn't destroy it because they wouldn't destroy evidence that helped their case. They destroyed it
as we've said many times on this subject. There was 3 items in the box that they destroyed. It was the duct tape. It was the shower curtain that Sneed testified that Glossip helped him cover up the window that was broken in 102 from the inside, and the wallet that was in Barry Van Treese's pocket that he said that he testified that Glossip pulled out of Van Treese's pocket, got a $100 bill out of it and put it back. Those 3 items were in the box that the state destroyed. And again, that would have either set him free with cross-examination if there was no DNA found on those 3 items, or it would have solidified the state's case. So it's real easy to answer the question, why did they destroy that second box before the second trial? Unfortunately, Rich just did not have good representation because they didn't even bring that up. And the other thing for your viewers, listeners that have not seen the documentary, I highly recommend watching the documentary that got me involved back in 2017, which is called Killing Richard Glossip. Because you will see, as you mentioned earlier, the interrogation tapes where the detectives were forcing this story to who the murderer, Justin Sneed, at the time was a 19-year-old meth addict. He was doing it intravenously. That's how bad he was on methamphetamines. And so when the jurors, by the way, never saw these interrogation tapes, but I know for me, when I first saw this, I was like, that's a huge red flag, because they are crafting this story for him to agree to, and that's exactly the blueprint that they followed. And all of that with this trial pending, if we do move forward, it's going to be there for the world to see this go around.
Well, right now, across the state, if you look across the state, you had Pottawatomie, Lincoln County DA requesting from the AG, Drummond, to do an investigation into DHS. And again, one of the things he came back was talking about the cabal of all of the criminal justice system, court system, juvenile system, DHS system. We have a grand jury that still, to my opinion, is pending because the judge never gave us a hearing on it, has never really opened it or closed it. He approved it, but never did anything else. That grand jury was in Oklahoma County. We had one in Grady. We had one in Garfield. Now, here's what's funny. They come in and take the on signature page in Garfield and set it on fire. Now, the police got called. They worked it. I think the person admitted to doing it. And to my knowledge, nothing done on it. We have Garfield County. We have Tulsa County. And we have one in Wagner County. Now this is funny. Wagner County, lots of intimidation. Tulsa, lots of intimidation by the district attorney's office. But there in Wagner, there becomes a big dispute how many signatures it would take. And you got the DA there who is a subject in this grand jury. Subject in the grand jury. And he is in the court arguing against the petition. Now that would be like if you're the DA and I'm the sheriff and I bring you charges against you, are you going to be able to say, nah, I don't think we'll charge myself today? Can you see what I'm saying? That's insane. Yeah. So you got this DA in front of the court arguing against a petition that he's the subject of. If that don't smack of corruption, I don't know what smacks of corruption. And again, they got so many things that they want to go forward on there, and yet you got an AG that's sitting here saying, we don't have enough evidence to move forward. My gosh, you got 5-6 counties, screaming grand juries, 2 of your biggest counties in the state. You got dang near, we're getting close on every one of these thousands of signatures saying yes. You got one of the DAs coming forward and saying it is. How much more evidence do you need? And that's where I'm saying Drummond's messing up, because here you got these corrupt, rogue DAs violating the law, destroying evidence, putting people in jail for years and years, putting people on death row by their lies, by their deceit, and by their criminal behavior. It's criminal behavior. You have all of this other stuff going on. I think if Drummond would have come in, prosecuted these people, ordered a multi-county grand jury, guess what? I would tell you, if he had done those two things, that sucker would be hard to beat for governor. But I'm going to tell you, I think these things are what's going to beat him, is because he's saying I'm the law and order man. And again, law and order means that even when it's your own, especially you hold those around you accountable. You hold those that own, those that have that badge, those that have that high-ranking authority have to be held more accountable. And when you got young people corrupt and and destroying evidence, and then you go back in and try. And oh, by the way, the DAs, I don't know if everybody knows this, but me and McDugle filed an open records showing that they were having improper communications with pro board, through the pro board. And so we're working on that. We're working to show all that. And again, they fought us on that. We won on that. But again, it's just showing a pattern of abuse. It's an abusive situation that we have going on here. And we have our appellate court that very, very disturbing when the Supreme Court says that here's all these problems. And our Oklahoma appellate court, guess what? Unanimously votes to kill this guy. Yeah. How does that happen?
That's why we need an overhaul. And kind of on that same subject, but changing gears just a little bit, because I know it's the time is of essence. But Tremaine Wood, didn't you write Gettner a letter on Tremaine Wood, who's I think you and I talked about it the other day. His execution is next here in Oklahoma, and I know that case disturbs both you and I. And I got to know Tremaine while visiting Rich and hearing his story. But you might elaborate a little bit more on that, Humphrey, because it's coming up in September.
It is, and we had a hearing last year on some of this that we're talking about, on the death penalty question and how broad it is in Oklahoma, that if you're even involved in a crime and a person ends up dying out of that crime, you can be charged with, the death penalty. And so we were looking at that, and a lot of Tremaine's people were in there, and one of the lawyers for Tremaine was in there speaking. Not really for Tremaine, but for one of the, other defendants in that case. So that person knew quite a bit. And so that case did come up in there quite a bit. So I knew about the case, but I'm off in another county. I just say the county. I was off in Payne County looking up some things that I thought were corrupt. I'm up there digging up stuff. And people don't realize I go all over the state looking. When I get told this stuff, I don't go, oh, gee, let's just run off with it. I go, no, let me go up here to Payne County. Let me meet with people. Let me see, do we have these records? So I'm up in Payne County looking at something totally different. Not Tremaine's case. I wasn't on Tremaine's case. But while we're talking about all this comes up. Tremaine's case comes up, and there's some records and all this. And they said, well, you wouldn't know anything about this case. And I said, no, I think I know a little bit about it. And they said, no, you're not going to know about this case. I said, well, let me tell you. I said, you got two women who lure these guys up to an apartment where they got two other guys, which was the Woods brothers, waiting to beat them up and steal their money. And it goes bad, and one of them ends up dead. And the Tremaine brothers end up being convicted, and the two women are on. But the one woman that has she has a felony record, they offer her like the sweetheart deal. I mean, they offer her a sweetheart deal. Well, I'm looking at some of this paperwork because they go, you do know about this case. I said, oh, I know all kinds of stuff about this case. So they actually had some paperwork in there that wasn't anything to do with what we were doing. But anyways, I got to going through this paperwork. And of course, you know this, but listeners may not. I used to be a probation officer for about 20 years. And so one of the things in this was a probation violation. And I got to looking at it because I was like, wonder if I know the officer that wrote that, And as you're reading it, if you've read them for 20 years, you're reading, okay, rule this, rule that, violated this, rule that rule. Crud, they violated every rule of the book, And so then I'm flipping through it and I find that the DA goes in and requests that this person's record be dismissed. Now, here's what's funny. That's a big red flag, because if you want your case dismissed, you'll normally have to do it yourself or hire an attorney, and it's almost guaranteed you have to hire an attorney. And it is rare, not unheard of, but rare for a DA to do it. And typically, if a DA does it, that means something hinky's going on. that means they've made some deal. There's some backwater thing going on. You know what I mean? So I look at that, but here's what got my eye. They filed the dismissal, and I was like, oh, that's weird. And I'm reading it, and it says that the defendant has successfully completed probation. And you look at the date, and you're going, now how can that DA go into court when they got this report from this, probation officer saying, oh, hey, she's violated every rule, and including murder, conspiracy to rob, and robbery. Okay. Now, how you gonna go in and say, yeah, Your Honor, she's done awesome on probation. She's substantially completed it, successfully completed it. She's doing great. Now, who does that? And if you do that, guess what you just did? You committed perjury on that court. You lied to that court. Now, then they turn around and take her down to Oklahoma County, where she becomes a witness in this, and they present her like she's Cinderella at the ball. You know what I'm saying? So here's the deal. It is obvious that that's a lie, that they perjured themselves to do this. Then they come back in and say, well, she's got a plea agreement for 45 years, but she gets out in 6. So you know what I'm saying? So they just said that so that the jury would think they had a deal. But as soon as they got out, they went and worked the real deal. They had a back alley deal already cooked up, and she got that. And so, again, that seems absolutely obvious. This is not me talking off the cuff. This is what you can see 100% by the records that I have that I found on my own. So I call the person's attorney, and in fact, I get a couple of attorneys because I get the other female's attorney and talk to her, and I talk to this other attorney that's for the death penalty case, Tremaine Woods. And so we start talking, and I said, well, what I'd really like to have, because I've got a case that I'm working another deal on, that's Fern Smith, who was involved in Richard Glossip's case. So here's this what I say, very corrupt, and I say that with proof that she's been overturned on multiple cases. And so I say, man, I would like to see how many cases she's been overturned in. So this attorney sends me all their paperwork, which has that. So I write Drummond and the governor, and I say, look here, here's what happened. She was on probation. She seems to be the person I would say would probably be the, what would you call it, the brainchild behind this, the brains behind it. Yeah, the architect. And so you don't know that, but it kind of appears that if you look at the case and look at all involved, and here they offer her the best deal. Everybody else gets life or the death penalty. She gets out in 6 years. So I'm writing them and saying all this, and then I point out, hey, Fern's had this overturned due to misconduct. Fern's had this overturned due to misconduct. Fern's had this overturned due to misconduct. And I also say that if you looked at, what is that Supreme Court lady's name?
Sotomayor.
I can't never remember her name. Sotomayor, if you look at her ruling, and I'm going to paraphrase it down to Humphrey style, but if you look at what she said, she basically said that both sides have to have the same information, and that basically anybody that's an officer of that court, anybody that's in that court has an obligation, a duty to report any fraud upon the court, including the judge, the entire court has a duty to call out fraud, to report fraud. Now, and that's how I read that, okay? So I write that to the governor, to the AG. The AG wrote me back probably I can't say 20. He wrote me back a very, very long letter that I'm going to paraphrase what he said. J.J. Humphrey's a crackhead. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And he stole all this information from the attorneys because he ain't smart enough to say it, and he got all this off the attorneys. Well, that's a lie, because I called the attorneys and I think both of them would say, hey, he already had all this before. What I got from the attorneys and what I was looking at is how many cases have Fern had overturned. And I did get that from the attorneys, but I was looking for that, and I wrote this in my own terminology. And again, you know, he can call me a moron if he wants to call me a moron. If we're pen pals, I wish you would call me a moron now. That's getting a little nasty with my pen pal. But here's the deal. If I'm a moron, what's that make you? Because even a moron can see that they perjured themselves on the court.
Right.
Ray Charles could see that. Ray Charles would see that in the dark, that this lady violated every rule, violated everything, and that a DA walked in and said she successfully completed probation. That is a lie, and a lie is called perjury in court, and therefore that DA committed perjury in the court by getting her case dismissed. And again, that was done for the purpose for her to testify. That's completely obvious. She's back down there testifying so that they can make it look like she does not have a criminal record. So again, here's another big fraud played upon the court. And what did the Supreme Court judge say? You have a duty to report fraud upon the court. You have a duty to call it out. And here we are with Glossip. This is the exact behavior that got Glossip kicked out. Here we're back in the court showing this extreme exact behavior. And guess what? They're ignoring it, and they write 20 pages. Why don't they just come out and say J.J. Humphrey's a crackhead and we don't believe him? I would rather have that. It's a whole lot easier to read. You know what I'm saying? Than 20 pages of blah, 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 blah. You know, again, what I said was that the DA committed fraud. I have the proof fraud. I have the violation report. I have their report to the court where they said that she successfully completed. Any moron can see that's a lie. Any moron then knows the lie to the court is perjury. And then I've got all these cases where she's been overturned. Fern Smith has been overturned. Her and Bob Macy overturned because of misconduct. And in the criminal justice business, you call that a pattern. Here's the deal. When you're investigating something, that's what you look for. You look for that pattern. You look for that same print. You look for that same MO. You look for the way that person does. And you start going, hey, this is this, this is this, this is this. And you follow that pattern to catch a person. Guess what? Fern Smith has a pattern of abuse, a pattern of lying, being overturned for lying, which takes a whole lot. And if you got 5 cases of being overturned, you know, by the Supremes, then there's a pretty good chance you got 500 that didn't. You know what I'm saying? You're going to have a lot of cases that didn't make it that far or didn't get hurt. No telling how many people she's cheated. And again, that's the kind of system we got to call out.
Well, I believe at this point, it could be so black and white, you know, but Gettner is not going to question the system because he's afraid of the political optics. And, it's a shame. I mean, we've got a man that the state could execute in a couple of months that is certainly not deserving of execution. And that should trouble all of us as Oklahomans, all of us that are paying into the system.
The other thing in that case that we don't mention and what doesn't get mentioned, just like in Richard's case, Richard ain't the guy that beat that guy to death. Justin Sneed beat that guy to death.
That's
Justin
right.
Sneed was a violent,
admittingly,
beat the victim. Now, he's saying Richard was involved. Guess what? No evidence of that. And the only thing that is a bunch of police officers telling him that 20 times, telling him they give him a break if he'll say that. And he finally says it. And a DA walking in and going, hey, what you said don't really line up. How about you change it over here to this? and he immediately changes it. So we see he is obviously a liar and will say whatever they want him to. And that's their only connection to him that I can really see. You know what I'm saying? Yes, he
Right.
worked there, and yes, they had money thing, but that's the connection, okay? Terrible. They ain't got a case. They have not got a case. But bottom line, this guy didn't kill him. And you're going to give the guy who killed him a break to try to get the guy that y'all can't even prove they're connected. Tremaine Wood didn't kill this guy. His brother killed him.
Yep.
His brother said, I killed him. His brother offered to take the death penalty to get his brother off. And again, they would not listen to him. My understanding, the brother committed suicide over all that.
That's my understanding too. And, you know, I can tell you this, just to give a little personal feel to it. Every time I talked to Tremaine, I saw the fear in his eyes. And, you know, I know he knows he was in the wrong place, wrong time. He was engaged in illegal activity, but I do not believe that he deserves execution.
Well, he didn't do it. He didn't do it. He didn't have the intent to do that. He didn't do it. So he wasn't the one did it. He didn't have the intent. So again, to go to the death penalty in his case is very extreme. And then to lie and cheat to get there is again, that's what I oppose, and that's what I am fighting. Hey, before we get off, we got about 2 more minutes. I want to tell everybody that, and Justin already knows this, but I've announced to run for the lieutenant governor's position. So I throw my hat in Monday on that. And what we're talking about is the reason that I'm running. It's because there is nobody up there that is going to call out government, whether it be the DAs. Guess what? There ain't nobody up there. There's nobody in this race that is going to call out the DAs for that kind of behavior and call them onto the carpet and try to change our criminal justice system. But we have the same problem in DOC. We have the same problem in DHS. We have problems in mental health. We have problems. Again, who's going to call out and say, hey, how do you change the school system? We're 50th in the nation. We got to come down on that. We got to get to 15. And so here's the deal. Who do you know? And again, the lieutenant governor's not been a spot where anybody's used that to do the things. And people say, JJ, you can't use that. That spot won't have that. I have looked at that spot, and I can tell you, yes, it does. If you have the right person with the backbone to get out there and go after these things and use it as a way to say, you know what, if we're going to have people come to Oklahoma, then we're going to have to get the corruption out of these agencies. We've got to get these agencies what they're responsible to do, whether it be mental health, whether it be criminal justice, whether it be DOC, all of these things, DHS, child welfare, all of these things need to go back into our community, be done right. Who wants to come to a place where, hey, DHS walk in and take your kid without a hearing or without probable cause or without proper action, okay? Nobody wants to come to a place like that. Who wants to come where, hey, you know what, any kind of thing can result in your kid going to prison for forever or you going possible to prison on something like this? And again, guys, we are law and order people. I'm a pro-death penalty person. I am pro-death penalty. Right. But I am pro doing it correctly. And when you have to lie, cheat, destroy evidence, when you become a criminal, when you use your DA position as a criminal to try to convict somebody and use criminal behavior to do it because you can't do it any otherwise, or when you hold somebody, we got one case in Wagner where a couple had their kids and they're saying, well, they did all this. Well, if they did all that, why didn't you find them guilty? You've had 2 shots at it. You didn't find them guilty. You can't continue to hold their kid 7 years as they have without proper hearings, without evidence, you've never found them guilty, but you've treated them as if they're guilty and you took their kid away. That is criminally wrong. We're in America. This is Oklahoma. We got to call this stuff out. There's nobody else going to do that. I'm going to be the guy to do it. I guarantee you, I've already done it. I've done proving it. I have a track record for it. So I want you to vote for me. I want you to get out What we need is boots on the ground. We need your help spreading the word, help carrying the message. We're going to need fundraising. We're going to have a really fun way to bring in Bigfoot. We're going to make T-shirts. We hope you'll buy one, buy signs, and do all that to support our campaign, because the big lobbyists are going to come out against me. They're going to hate me because I'm calling out them. I'm calling out the corruption in the Capitol and around the Capitol with what all these things do. So, hey, I want to tell you, I hope you'll get involved. I hope you'll be boots on the ground. Every county, we want to have people in every county helping our campaign. We want to take the state by storm, and we want to upset. Nobody believes this can be done, and I want to pull an upset and show those Capitol establishments that, yes, grassroots people, that the common people still control Oklahoma, and let's get our government back. Hey, I'll leave you the final word, Justin.
Well, everything that you just said, that's why I brought you into this case kicking and screaming, because I know your tenacity, and I knew once you saw what I was seeing that you weren't going to let go. And back to the old hog hunting analogy, yeah, there's some good looking bay dogs in the pack, but there's only one catch dog, and that's you, because once you get a hold of something, God forbid that you're on the other, somebody's on the other end, because they're going to feel the bite of J.J. Humphrey. And I'm proud that you're in this race, and more importantly, I'm proud to call you a good friend.
I'm proud to have you as a friend as well, and I'm proud of you getting me involved in this Glossip case. And guys, I'm going to predict that the agreement is going to stick, and that they're going to release him on this agreement. But again, hey, you know, like anybody else, it's still up in the air, and we'll see where the ball comes down. Hey, we're going to call it a wrap. Justin, I appreciate you. You have a great, blessed Sunday, what's left of it.